How did a country which used to be a pioneer in science, technology, art, and education come to have human poo floating down its rivers? And how do we come back from this?
This is the story of how the British Conservative Party subjected its own country to 3 separate yet interconnected experiments, each of which would tear away a different part of the country's political, social, and economic fabric.
This is the story of how Britain became a poor country. This is David Cameron. On the 11th of May 2010, David Cameron enters 10 Downing Street for the first time.
England always got poo in the river, let's be real. Yes and no. They did, and they handled it, and then they fucked it up again. Yes. Poo in the they-thems river has always been a fucking major issue. Except they privatized it. And of course, when they did that, the private corporations did not take the necessary precautions. Because why the fuck would they? There's also no regulation on it because it's like glad handing? Like it's like friendly businesses that they gave it to.
As the newly elected Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. His election win hasn't been a particularly convincing one. The party Cameron leads, the Conservatives, have only managed to win 306 seats in the House of Commons. That's 20 seats short of an outright majority. Claiming the top spot has thus required him to go cap in hand to this guy, Nick Clegg, the leader of the UK's notionally centrist Liberal Democrat Party. After 5 days of negotiations, Cameron and Clegg have agreed to form a coalition government, in which Cameron will serve as Prime Minister and Clegg as his deputy.
Coalition governments in which multiple parties come together to govern collaboratively are exceptionally rare in the UK. The last time this happened was during the 1930s and 1940s, when all the major parties in Parliament came together to present a united front during the Second World War. As David Cameron crosses the threshold of number 10, however, he perhaps feels like this collaborative arrangement might serve him well.
See, David Cameron is, at this point at least, a genre of centre-right politician which would soon go wildly out of fashion. He's certainly a great supporter of typical conservative causes such as tax cuts, privatizations and reductions in welfare spending, but he's also desperate to at least present himself as youthful, environmentally conscious and broadly socially liberal. Some of this social liberalism is perhaps sincere. As Prime Minister, he'll soon push for the UK to adopt equal marriage, despite solid opposition from other Conservatives. He'll also lead a revolution in offshore wind and had already managed to promote greater gender equality among political candidates within his...
Bro. I mean, things have gotten much worse in general. But it's just something to remember that, like, this is why it's not even a question about, like, American Republican Party versus the Conservative Party in the UK.
Party. Although, this being the 2000s, the British press had soon christened them Cameron's cuties, which, yeah. Perhaps more suspect is the idea which sits at the centre of Cameron's vision for Britain, the big society.
The big society is intended, in part, as a corrective to that eternal conservative bogeyman of big government. Cameron's pitch is that he's going to empower individuals, charities and community groups to take a more active role in civic life. In its opposition to big government, however, the big society doesn't stop at cutting red tape and government oversight. All that charity work is intended to make up for a brutal programme of cuts to public services.
It's fair to say that the UK's finances aren't exactly in the best of shape at this point. This is just 2 years after the global financial crisis of 2008, and the country is still very much dealing with the aftermath. In order to prevent the complete collapse of the country's banking and housing sectors, the previous government has paid to effectively nationalise 2 banks and shelled out to buy significant ownership stakes in 2 more. A fall in real terms earnings, along with people being more cautious with how they spend their money, means tax receipts have also taken a hit. The state of affairs is perhaps best captured by a handwritten note left by Labour's outgoing Chief Secretary of the Treasury to his successor, which reads simply, "Dear Chief Secretary, I'm afraid there is no money. Best regards, and good luck." Over the next 5 years, Cameron references this note often. He sometimes waves it about at campaign events. Not only does the memo help to portray Cameron's political rivals in the Labour Party as having a carefree attitude when it comes to taxpayer cash, the notion that the country is flat broke provides a rationale for taking a pretty uncompromising approach to cutting government spending.
As things stand, the UK government is running a budget deficit of £150 billion. Cameron and his government unveil a plan to cut that number as quickly as possible.
It doesn't matter that interest rates are at their lowest since 1694 and that the cost of the government's borrowing is effectively zero. Cameron and Osborne want to slash the size of the state. And there has perhaps never been a better excuse to do so. The package of spending cuts implemented over the next few years includes reforms to the welfare.
Tell your club channels not to upload your reaction to this video. Tom Nichols has criticized your fan channels in the past and said he doesn't want them to upload your reactions to his work. It's pretty funny that you are mentioning this as though I don't fucking personally talk to Tom or I haven't had a personal conversation with Tom. Like, you know better, dude. You know better. Thanks. What are we doing? Half a chat is fucking demanding I explain. Half a chat is demanding I explain what the fuck food I'm eating and explain like the every bite individually. And the other half is like, oh bro, what the fuck? Don't upload this video. Why are you reacting to this video? No, I've talked with Tom on stuff like this. As long as you're not fucking cutting the video's momentum, it's fine. It's a case-by-case basis for the most part, but like, anyway, Hasan's least defensive reaction to a chatter. I just, you know, I've been pretty good today. I haven't had a short fuse, but I'm just like starting to get a little annoyed.
A system which make it harder for disabled people and sick people to access support. It involves a 13% cut in funding for schools and colleges, as well as a 40% cut to funding for universities, made up for by shifting the burden of tuition costs onto students through a tripling of fees.